Yo, this is a lie, dude. She's just lying to the American public. The only tax hike that will happen when the tax cuts expire are for everything but the top margin. The corporate tax rate is permanent, and so was the tax cut for the top margin. Anyway, we're quickly going to move on to the Kamala Harris interview that's taking place on MSNBC. Okay, I'm going to try that one more time with Stephanie Ruhle after Stephanie Ruhle came out and said she supports people voting
left
for
us
Kamala Harris on Bill
the
Maher.
worst economy since the Great Depression when you look at, for example, the employment numbers.
It was during COVID.
I also must urge you to subscribe at the top of the hour because there's a 3-minute ad break coming for you right now.
He lost manufacturing jobs by most people's estimates, at least 200,000. He lost manufacturing plants. Ask the auto workers how he lost auto plants. We have grown over 20 new auto plants. He has an agenda. Let's just deal with it right now going forward, not to mention what happened in the past. He has an agenda that would include making it more difficult for workers to earn overtime, an agenda that would include cutting off access to small business loans for small businesses, an agenda that includes
this is live on MSNBC. When the interview launches, we'll watch it from the start.
20% more on everyday necessities and an estimated $4,000 more a year on those everyday necessities, to the point that top economists in our country, from Nobel laureates to people at Moody's and Goldman Sachs, have compared my plan with his and said my plan would grow the economy, his would shrink the economy.
I love how stupid this level of argumentation is. It was stupid when Brandon was saying it, and it's still stupid when Kamala was saying it.
And invite a recession by the middle of next year.
Hell
so
yeah,
the
Goldman
facts
Sachs,
remain
baby. Let's go.
That Donald Trump has a history of taking care of very rich people. And I'm not mad at anybody for being rich, but they should pay their fair share. But tax cuts for the billionaires and the top corporations in our country, and then not really paying much attention to middle-class families. My perspective on the economy is when you grow the middle class, America's economy is stronger. And there's empirical evidence to prove my point correct.
Then let me ask you about taxes, because lots of people will say, I don't like Donald Trump, but he cut my taxes. He didn't just cut corporate taxes, he cut individual taxes. Now, that expires next year, and there's some people confused saying, I don't know what's going to happen next year. Under a Harris administration, at what income level should someone expect their taxes to go up? And that state and local tax deduction that's currently capped and matters to a lot of people in blue states, are you going to lift that cap?
So, first of all, when it relates to anybody making less than $400,000 a year, your taxes will not go up. Your taxes will not go up. And in fact, under my plan, taxes...
Wait, so that means you're going to make the Trump tax cuts permanent? What the fuck is wrong with you?
Including $6,000 a year for young couples for the first year of their...
Oh my God, she's going to make the Trump tax cuts that are supposed to sunset. She's going to make them permanent? Like, what the
is that? Because during the first year of a young couple, of a person's child's life, they're going to need help buying a crib, buying a car seat. And we all benefit when they're actually able to do what they naturally want to do to take care of their child.
And expanding that child tax credit, or you mentioned housing before, giving that extra money for a first home. If you can't raise corporate taxes, or if GOP takes control of the Senate, where do you get the money to do that? Do you still go forward with those plans and borrow?
Well, but we're going to have to raise corporate taxes, and we're going to have to raise...
It's not new, but she's never said it within the context of, like, Trump tax cuts, the tax cuts sunsetting.
Billionaires pay their fair share. That's just it. It's about paying their fair share. I am not mad at anyone for achieving success, but everyone should pay their fair share, and it is not right that the teachers and the firefighters that I meet every day across our country are paying a higher tax than the richest people in our country.
Bill Gates just said it this week. If he was in charge of taxes, he would have paid more. But how do you find that line to make sure corporations are paying their fair share, but they're not leaving our country?
Well, listen, I work with a lot of CEOs. I have spent a lot of time with CEOs, and I'm going to tell you that the business leaders who are actually part of the engine of America's economy agree that people should pay their fair share. They also agree that when we look at a plan such as mine that is about investing in the middle class, investing in new industries, investing in bringing down costs, invest in entrepreneurs like small businesses, that the overall economy is stronger and everyone benefits. Part of my plan for the economy is investing in new industries in a way that we have active partnership with the private sector. I've worked with the private sector my entire career. Even as vice president, working with some of the biggest banks and biggest tech companies to increase by billions of dollars the money going into community banks to increase access to capital for small businesses. Why do those biggest corporations and CEOs do that? Because they know those kinds of investments, like in our small businesses, in startups and entrepreneurs, actually strengthens America's economy overall, and everyone benefits. So this is not about bilking anybody, but it just
Bro, Stephanie Rule is eating this.
sure that we create
It's dog shit, and
opportunities
she's eating
for
it.
everyone to grow wealth. I believe that it is not sufficient, and it should not be our goal to just make sure everyone is working. That should be the baseline. That should be a given. And let's create an economy where people have the ability to buy a home, to start a business, to take a nice vacation from time to time, right?
For people who want to buy a home, yes, getting a $25,000 kicker would be great. But it's not just affording a home. We don't have enough in this country.
You're absolutely right.
And one of the main problems are regulations and rules, strict rules at a local level. How does the federal government cut through all that red tape and get down to, I don't know, the suburbs of Pittsburgh and say, we're going to have to build some affordable housing here? How do you connect the two?
So you're absolutely right. So across our country, people rightly are concerned about the cost of housing. So it's home ownership, to your point. We need more supply. That is, without any question, part of the solution. Creating more supply under my plan includes creating tax incentives to work with the private sector and home builders. Part of my goal and the plan would be to create 3 million new housing units for rent and for ownership by the end of my first term. It includes also what we must do to cut red tape. You're absolutely right. It takes far too long, and there's too much bureaucracy associated with home building. And I say that as a devout public servant. I know that we have to reduce the red tape and speed up what we need to do around building. And that is going to require working from the federal level with state and local governments. And it's going to be different in different places, depending on the needs of that community, the needs of that local government, that municipality, but working in consultation and coordination, and also around incentives that we can create. For example, some of the work is going to be through what we do in terms of giving benefits and assistance to state and local governments around transit dollars, and looking holistically at the connection between that and housing, and looking holistically at the incentives we in the federal government can create for local and state governments.
Okay, I like that.
To actually engage in planning in a holistic manner that includes prioritizing
She's still way too much of a fucking urbanist yimby for my liking. But
Coming up,
I
much
like
more
it.
of Stephanie Rule's exclusive interview with Vice President Kamala Harris.
I mean, I like the way she communicated that last aspect, because obviously public transit is directly tied. It's hand in hand with housing. If you increase, for example, housing density and change the readily available housing supply to like higher density urban housing, you're going to need to improve public transit. So like things of that nature are pretty solid. And it's not just like the most annoying urbanist yimbys that are aware of these realities. Having said that, however, obviously Kamala Harris, I have no confidence in. So I do believe she's probably hitting that from the NIMBY perspective. Or not NIMBY, sorry, YIMBY perspective. You guys know, for me, it's like make the federal government compete, okay? We need deflation on housing. We need the housing bubble to pop. So what that needs, in an effort to do that, you need to create an alternative, a government subsidized alternative, not government subsidies of the public-private partnership, but like directly a federal jobs program that actually constructs these housing units all around the country, state by state, if you would like to do so. And then that housing development project should also be socialized housing, social housing, public housing. This is the way that the government competes with the private marketplace and still utilizes the capitalist market measures in an effort to ensure that there is some kind of sustainability in terms of pricing. Okay? Of course, Kamala Harris will never do that. That's not going to happen. And her alternative to the current unsustainable model that we have that is created so much homelessness is simply deregulation and tax incentives for big real estate developers. I personally consider this an awful way to try and solve a problem. I don't think this will solve the problem at all. They will sit on those tax incentives. They will not complete those housing projects, and all of this will go to waste inevitably.
Business that matters a lot to this town.
Yeah.
U.S. Steel.
Yes.
Right? When you think Pennsylvania, when you think Pittsburgh, you got the Liberty Bell in Philly, and you got U.S. Steel in Pittsburgh.
That's right.
A Japanese company wants to buy them. You are opposed to this idea. Many people are. But if the deal doesn't go through, they have said people could lose jobs, they could close mills, they could leave the state of Pennsylvania. I mean, that is like moving the Liberty Bell to Newark. So which is more important?
It's most important that we
Also, whenever she's talking about housing, how the do you not bring up rent caps? What happened?
in manufacturing of steel by American workers.
What happened? I'll tell you what happened.
reasons,
She dropped it.
which includes, again, back
I'll
to
tell
the
you what
point
she's not dropping: the price of rent.
about the economy overall, investing in new industries. There is not a new industry
This is why I'm voting for Joe
that I can
Biden.
imagine.
Mister, I'm gonna decrease rent. I'm gonna put a rent cap at $55 a month. That's why. That's why I'm writing in Biden's name.
In an American company, manufacturing that steel for those new industries is going to be critically important, not only in terms of our economy, but also in the context of national security. Most people now realize if we didn't before the pandemic and the strain on supply chains and an over-reliance on foreign manufacturing, that we have to be intentional about U.S.-based manufacturing. And of the products that we have to prioritize, steel is one of them. And that's always going to be my priority.
Steel workers matter in this country. Unions matter.
Yes.
In 2016, Donald Trump connected with unions. He saw them.
Will increase
there was an
supply
emotional
of housing,
connection.
not lower rent prices. I think it will lower rent prices a little bit. It's an inevitability. I just don't even think that they will actually increase the supply of housing, though. I don't believe it. And they will not punish it like the PPP loans. Ain't nobody got punished for that. Okay. So many people engaged in fraud and virtually zero people got punished for it. Just like all these tax cuts that you'll get in order to attempt to build a house will get mucked up in the process. This is something that I know very well as a California resident. Okay. This is how it goes in California.
Investing in new industries and working actively with the private sector to grow our economy.
But I'm asking because there's this idea we want something more from her. What is it?
Well, here's the thing, that back to your point about previous election cycles, Donald Trump made a whole lot of promises that he did not meet, and one would argue broke. Look at Lordstown. He said he was going to...
Don't sell your homes.
Yeah, don't sell your homes. And what happened? It shut down. Outsourcing under Donald Trump. His policies that are about putting, tens to hundreds of % tariffs.
John Deere.
Yes. Yes. So part of the challenge, and I don't disagree that it's a challenge, got to earn the vote of everybody, is reminding people of fact. Regardless of what somebody says in a small rally somewhere. And I think that's really important. And that's part of what I'm doing in this campaign, is to remind people, just like here in Pittsburgh, of the reality of who has stood with union labor, who stands for American manufacturing, who stands for American jobs.
Can I ask you about tariffs? Because you just mentioned it. It's not just with one company. Donald Trump's sort of big idea is this broad-based tariffs across the board. You and many others have said that would be not only disastrous, but it would be a direct tax on the American consumer.
It would be a sales tax on the American people. The independent economists have already measured this by the sales tax of doing a 20% tariffs on all imports that he has described would be a 20% sales tax, in essence, on basic necessities for the average American worker, average American family, totaling almost $4,000 a year. That is no small matter. Here in Pittsburgh, when I'm talking to a group of folks who work here, who live here, and when they hear it might be $4,000 more a year for them, look, People can't afford that.
But tariffs aren't unique to President Trump. President Biden has tariffs in place. He's actually looking to potentially implement more. Where do you come out on? Is there a good tariff, a bad tariff?
Well, part of it is you don't just throw around the idea of just tariffs across the board, and that's part of the problem with Donald Trump. Frankly, I'm going to, and I say this in all sincerity, he's just not very serious about how he thinks about some of these issues. And one must be serious.
He's like, we're going to do good tariffs. He's doing bad tariffs is such a funny Trumpian-ass line.
Some talking point ending in an exclamation at a political rally, but actually putting the thought into what will be the return on the investment, what will be the economic impact on everyday people. And when you look at my plans, you will see what those benefits will be. $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. You know what that means? Then you're creating the ability of that working person to build intergenerational wealth.
For homeowners,
doing
baby.
the work of a $6,000 child tax credit, doing the work of a $50,000 tax deduction for first-time small businesses, startups, because right now—
That's a real plan.
It's a real plan, because right now, and again, it's about paying attention to the detail and being serious about it. I'm serious about my enthusiasm and for small businesses and my belief in what they will do as part of America's economic engine.
On Friday,
So looking at the fact that right now the tax deduction is $5,000.
Does 25K make a difference in the U.S. housing market? I mean, it's good for a lot of people that are right around the corner, but probably not in the long run, because it will just make houses $25,000 more expensive.
The innovation and the ambition of the ideas that are present and among us, but need the fuel to be able to actually achieve the goal.
His plan is not serious when you lay it out like that, but a serious problem over the last few years has been inflation. Luckily, it's cooling, but prices are still high.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You've said you want to take this on by going after those who engage in price gouging.
Yeah.
But as somebody who supports free markets, who's a capitalist, how do you go after price gouging without implementing price controls? Because once we get in this zone, people start to get worried and they say, I don't know what she stands for.
So just to be very frank, I am never going to apologize for going after companies and corporations that take advantage of the desperation of the American people. And as Attorney General, I saw this happen. In the midst of an emergency, whether it be an extreme weather event or even the pandemic, we saw it, where those few companies, not the majority, not most, but those few companies that would take advantage of the desperation of people and jack up prices. Yeah, I'm going to go after them. Yes, I'm going to go after them. And that is part of a much more comprehensive plan on what we can do to bring down the cost of living, including housing, including the everyday needs of the American people.
Coming up, more of Stephanie Ruhle's interview with Vice President Kamala Harris, where she addresses Trump's claim.
Yeah, she's glazing super hard. Okay, Stephanie Ruhle is glazing Kamala. One argument I've seen against the notion that price will go up 25K is that sellers don't know or care whether the buyer is going to get the tax credit. All they know is the down payment and the mortgage money, and not everyone will qualify for the full amount, if any. Yeah, that doesn't matter. What matters is they see the $25,000 in tax credit and they go, oh, there's opportunity for us to increase the price. The way to actually lower the price is by creating more housing units. How you do that matters. Kamala Harris wants to do that through deregulation, which I don't like. She wants to do that by offering tax incentives to real estate developers, which I also do not like. Okay? I think that the private-public partnership is a demonstrable failure in the state of California. As Kamala Harris is a California Democrat, it is, I guess, expected for her to behave in a California Democrat style way, which is usually lip service and people voting for really progressive housing market reform, only to get nothing in return, like never actually get said housing market reform implemented because of that very same public-private partnership that we were talking about. It's always the private developers that just kind of go, thanks for the tax cuts. We just couldn't finish this project. Sorry. We really wanted to. We just couldn't. And now we're going to be using the tax cuts and the unfinished projects as a way to lower our taxable burden even further. After all, this is just eating away at our pockets. I don't know. It's just one way that I'm thinking. Why would a developer purposely not finish a project? I don't know. Literally ask any dude, great question, dog. I don't know. Why are there so many empty plots in the state of California that were supposed to be building like homeless shelters and shit, okay? Or additional housing units? I don't know. That's a great question. That's why I said they do it all the time. Don't ask me. I don't know. Do you think seriously regulations won't slow down the building of houses? Regulations have an absolute stranglehold on progress, like the middle of the hour ad break has on unsubscribed viewers. Putting on my libhopium hat could having a California Dem as POTUS at least be a good stepping stone in destigmatizing progressive posturing nationally? No, because she's not even doing progressive posturing nationally. What the Megaphonics? When, guys, what out of Kamala Harris's policies, with some exceptions, is like a genuinely progressive policy? We're talking about like 90s Republican Party ass attitudes in terms of like building new housing units by giving tax cuts to real estate developers and beyond that. You're not destigmatizing California progressivism. You're not, because this is not California progressivism. Also, this is the worst aspects of California progressivism if you're thinking about like Gavin Newsom. And that's gross and awful anyway. It's just pure neoliberalism. Anyway, right before this interview, MSNBC had a panel where someone was arguing that Harris needs to pander more to the left than to the Nikki Haley Republicans who will vote for Republicans. Damn, who was that? That's crazy. I worked in the home building industry. Every project is done by a separate LLC set up just for that project, and they contract the construction to the home building company. That way they can just shutter the LLC and walk away if the project goes wrong or if it won't have the right profits. Every matter of like legislation, every part of our legislative agenda revolves around tax cuts for corporations and deregulation, or the opportunity economy.
Okay,
anyway,
one of the issues is an economic one. And no one is eating cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio, and I'm glad not to be talking about that. But there are people there that are stressed, that feel that they're at capacity. Communities around the country that have legal immigration, many have said, we're at capacity. And many feel like the government has said to them, well, adapt, sit down, be quiet, this is how it is. What would a Harris administration do for those communities who've taken in many, many legal immigrants but are at capacity?
Well, first of all, we do have a broken immigration system, and it needs to be fixed. And if we take a step back, months ago, some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress came together with
Springfield, Ohio,
proposed a border security bill that would have put 1,500 new border agents.
Please look at any of these Rust Belt states, man.
Border agents who are there right now working around the clock. Would have put more money into stemming the flow of fentanyl, which is killing Americans around our country and devastating communities. Would have put more resources into our ability to prosecute transnational criminal organizations, which in my career I've prosecuted. Donald Trump got word of the bill, realized it was going to fix a problem he wanted to run on, and told him to kill the bill, don't put it up for a vote. He killed a bill that would have actually been a solution because he wants to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And that's part of what needs to be addressed. And my pledge is that when elected president, if the American people will have me, I will bring that bill back and I will sign it into law. And we need a comprehensive plan that includes what we need to do to fortify not only our border, but deal with the fact that we also need to create pathways for people to earn citizenship.
And I want to just ask you about a little job and a big job.
Okay.
The first one, just a fact check. Okay. Because your opponent
there is
almost
no little
every
job.
day. Okay.
There's no such thing as a little job.
Okay, fair. Because your opponent almost every day seems to be talking about this. So I just want to ask you yes or no. At any point in your life, have you served 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, working at a McDonald's? Yes or no? That's it.
I have.
Okay. Now the other job. But
it was not a small job. Like, I did the fries. I mean, yes.
Okay, for a small period of time. But then let me ask about a big job.
But to your point, if you don't mind, before you get to the big job, there's a part of the reason I even talk about having worked at McDonald's is because there are people who work at McDonald's in our country who are trying to raise a family. I worked there as a student. I was a kid who worked there trying to raise families and pay rent on that. And I think part of the difference between me and my opponent includes our perspective on the needs of the American people and what our responsibility then is to meet those needs.
Then to the big job. You have laid out policy in great detail.
Yeah.
But the economy is an unpredictable beast. And you are running for a job that takes extraordinary instinct and guts.
Yeah.
What's the last time you had to make a gut decision? This here is very prescribed. It's very controlled.
Yeah. Probably the biggest gut decision I've made most recently is to choose my running mate. Yeah. There were lots of good, incredible candidates. And ultimately, that came down to a gut decision.
I know I'm out of time, but then I just want to ask you a question from my gut.
Okay.
Because today we're talking about we're talking about the economy.
Yeah.
And people don't think often about reproductive rights being an economic issue, but it is. A woman's ability to plan her future, her education, her life. Today, and in the last few days, Donald Trump keeps talking about it and how in overturning Roe v. Wade, he helped women. He protected women. He says they're miserable today, they're poorer today, they're more vulnerable today. He said he will be the protector of women if elected. Can you respond to that?
So Donald Trump is also the person who said women should be punished for exercising a decision that they rightly should be able to make about their own body and their future. So I think we would all agree that as a result of that perspective that he has about women, he also then chose 3 members of the United States Supreme Court who did as he intended, undid the protections of Roe v. Wade, and now in state after state, you see laws being passed that do punish
In an
women.
alternative universe, Bernie Sanders gets this level of dick riding and glazing for his policies, and America is like universally on board with Medicare for all and many other issues that Bernie spoke to. And basically, we bring about the New Deal era for the Democratic Party, and the Democrats end up beefing up labor unions, and going in the opposite direction of the grand bargain or the third way, or neoliberalism, and they just win so hard. And the momentum of like openly socialist or social democratic politicians is so great that there's an entirely new youth wing of the Democratic movement, and and that's where we're at. Except that's not where we're at. Wake up. We're in the shittiest part.
Interview, and I thought you pressed her on really important stuff. It was also, I just thought the whole thing was refreshingly substantive. This was you can say I don't like that policy or I do like that policy, but it really was about like, here, the earth we live in, the kinds of decisions you're going to make, and it wasn't pie in the sky stuff. So very, very well done job. Let me just start by saying that.
Okay, well, I'm just going to sit here and soak in those compliments, so we don't have to talk about anything else. But I think what you're actually complimenting is that it was a normal interview, Chris. That's actually what it was. It was a normal interview. It was a person running to be the president of the United States, and for 25 minutes, we talked about their vision, and we talked about policy. And I think you just said it right there. At the end of the day, it's A-okay if you don't like her policies, right? She made it very clear. If you make over $400 grand a year, next year, when the individual tax cuts expire, she's going to raise your taxes. So if you're someone who just votes on that, well, then you know what you're doing. You don't want to vote for her. And I think that it's just that we're so...
This is a lie, dude. She's just lying to the American public. The highest tax bracket in this country are not going to actually see a tax hike. The only tax hike that will happen when the tax cuts expire are for everything but the top margin. Okay? The corporate tax rate is permanent. The corporate tax rate cut was permanent. And so was the tax cut for the top margin. Okay, everything beyond that, the under 400, their taxes are actually slated to increase. This is not necessarily a bad thing. She wants to raise wealthy taxes, though. No, she's not going to do that. Okay, one, I have yet to hear an actual proposal on how that is going to happen beyond some of the aspects of how things are taxed. But also, I don't think you're going to pay your fair share of taxes. That's such a funny argument to make because I'm in the highest income bracket, dumbass. And also, in terms of my like real taxes that I pay, my effective tax rate due to the way that my revenue stream is structured is literally higher than anyone else in my tax bracket because I live in California and I'm pure income. But having said that, however, given that I'm in the highest tax bracket, no, it's not going to actually increase. Okay? And I don't have an issue with increasing that. I'm actually, if you understand the words that I'm saying, the words that are coming out of my mouth, I'm mad because she's not going to be able to do that. Oh my God. I'm over here being like, yo, they're not increasing. They're not actually going to be able to successfully increase the tax, the taxable income of the highest earners in this country. And there is no like valid plan in play for that. And this guy's like, yeah, you're going to pay your fair share, brother.
This weird situation where both major party candidates kind of got to say what they're going to do to bring prices down, even though what everyone's reacting to is an issue that is a little bit in the past. You see what I'm saying? Like, so she's got the price gouging thing, which I thought was a good answer, but in some ways, no one's really talking about the real thing.
It is a little bit in the past. And listen, lots of people are angry that grocery stores have made so much money and they shouldn't. And I'm not defending grocery stores, but we should remember.
This is what's really annoying about this process, by the way. No matter what, like, given the tax bracket I'm in, Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't change my circumstances, okay? It does not change my circumstances at all. I am technically arguing against my best interest when I argue for the Democrats to actually do progressive legislation, because I understand that it is not about your short-term financial relief or additional tax burdens being lifted. Okay, I think that there is a longer project that we must keep in mind in terms of building a normal society, a healthy society. Okay, it's stupid. It's dumb.
An issue that has the American people angry, and the American people aren't thinking about what you just mentioned, which is,
I gotta say, all in all, that was an excellent interview. Hasan just wishes it was him interviewing her.
Finally,
no, I don't. I don't wish to interview Kamala Harris at all. Tim Walz, maybe, but definitely, I don't give a shit about interviewing Kamala Harris at all. It's just never going to happen. I'm far too adversarial for Kamala Harris's team to ever allow that to happen. Does it not just keep scaling up? I would have thought there's more brackets for like CEO type roles above you. What? Wealth in this country for CEO types above me in terms of real income come from stock options. And no, I am in the top tax bracket. I love you, Hasan, but you're sometimes annoyingly adversarial. What? Yeah, sorry, the Mex Blanco 555. I'm annoyingly adversarial because I don't think that this administration is communicating enough of a progressive message, nor are they genuinely interested in communicating a progressive message at all. Yeah. You're sometimes a moron and it pisses us off. What? What the fuck is going on with chat right now? What is happening? Did you consider anything that the chatter, not you? Oh my God. I love you, Hasan, but sometimes the political takes that make up 90% of your content I hate, but other than that, heart. There's just so much going on with the awful instincts of the Kamala Harris campaign, which still is not going to... I just want to repeat this for all the liberals, okay?
More. On a recent Harris campaign.
By the way, this was Mark Cuban's insane narrative here. Why Mark Cuban believes Trump and Sanders have overlap in economic plans. You are a brain-dead moron operating as a campaign surrogate. You dumbass. You absolute baboon. What the f is wrong with you? This paired up with Bernie Sanders coming out with an email being like, Kamala Harris is nowhere near as progressive as I am. Make no mistake. Is so stupid.
Call, you compared policy proposals made by Trump to those from independent Senator Bernie Sanders, who's a socialist. What do you mean?
Well, it was a race for socialism, right? Bernie said that credit card companies should cap their rates, their interest rates at 15%. Donald Trump, being the socialist that he is, had to beat Bernie. So Donald Trump went out and recommended that interest rate caps be set to 10%. I mean, the fact that he's even suggesting price controls and price caps is socialism 101.
I don't know if you know this, but your campaign that you're a surrogate for is also doing that. Are you that dumb? Are you stupid? You must be, right? Kamala Harris literally has a policy out there in the books that is simply doing that for grocery prices. Okay, they don't call it that because obviously Americans are too stupid and too scared of such a reality. They're calling it, going after price gouging. But if you're going to shit on price caps like this, acting as a surrogate for the Kamala Harris campaign, while simultaneously besmirching socialism and calling Trump a socialist, like, what is going on, man? Nobody thinks that the Republicans are behaving like socialists, okay? If you think socialism is bad, then you automatically are like, well, the Democrats are doing a little bit of socialism or a lot of socialism, depending on how brain broken you are. But ultimately, you're just reiterating the position that socialism is bad and therefore Democrats bad. Oh, I think Cuban is pointing out the hypocrisy from the right. He's not shitting on the policy. He is shitting on the policy. He just said price caps are socialism.
You haven't heard that from the vice president. You have heard that from Donald Trump.
Well,
then
how do you interpret?
How
do you interpret what she's doing in terms of price gouging, taking on price gouging by food companies?
Oh, Jake Tapper immediately. Okay, there you go. What do you mean? You just said you hate price caps while you're literally talking about acting as a Kamala Harris surrogate. There, it's such a dumbass position to launch as a Kamala Harris surrogate that even Jake Tapper was like, what are you talking about?
Because a lot of critics have said that is a form of price controls.
I'm glad you asked me that, Jake, because taking on price gouging is not price controls. She's not saying what the price of tomatoes should be. What she's saying is when there's a crisis, and there will be other crises, there'll be hurricanes, there'll be tornadoes, there'll be floods, there'll be other disasters. And when those disasters happen...
Yeah, it's already illegal. The follow-up then is, well, okay, that's already illegal, so I guess it's not a new policy. She's not going to do anything then.
She wants to be in a position to be able to say, no, you can't jack up those prices by 40%.
Oh, wait. Are you saying that she's going to institute, I don't know, some kind of cap? She said, you can't jack up those prices. Oh, as in she's going to control prices? Put a cap on the prices? What an idiot this guy is. The Harris campaign needs to get Cuban out campaigning for her. How many Republicans does it take to... What?
You have to stay within a particular realm, a particular guideline. And
Mark Cuban is such a capitalist, then why is he defending this position where he thinks demand doesn't deserve to control the price? Not saying I agree, but this argument is so stupid. I mean, because nobody is... It depends on what his ambitions are. If it's an industry that he is like invested in, then I'm sure he... wants to make that argument. But if it's something else, then, he's going to be like, you can have some controls.
And by the way, there are already 37 states that have similar guidelines. All she's doing is saying we're just going to make that a national law. So that's certainly not price caps or price controls at all. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is the king of price caps.
Why are you saying this about Donald Trump when price caps, in terms of going against price gouging, is Kamala Harris's most popular policy? Hey, let me tell you about Kamala Harris's most popular policy. First of all, it's very different than, It's not like Bernie Sanders at all. Bernie Sanders, one of the most historically popular congresspersons of all time. Trump is exactly like that guy. Also, on top of that, Kamala Harris's most popular policy, Trump is doing that. Trump wants to do that. What is happening, man? I just don't even fully understand what the f*** is happening. Here, let's hear what
sort of
MSNBC
revival
has
of
to
industrial policy, both as rhetoric, right? We need, redundancy in supply chain, something she talked about with steel. We need to bring manufacturing back, and we're going to use policy levers to do it. There is continuity there, right? Like that part of the Biden agenda, which is a huge part of it, is also part of the Harris.
If the Republicans keep giving corporate tax cuts, why do they keep endorsing Democrats? You mean corporations? First of all, more corporations still endorse the Republican Party than the Democratic Party. It's sector by sector. That's number one. Number two, Wealthy people endorse the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party has the exact same interest in mind that the Republican Party has in terms of where to move the economy. Make no mistake, they might say something when they're running for office, but what they do when they actually end up winning office is very different. So they already know that. So they have that confidence already when they endorse the Democratic Party, partially because Donald Trump is too chaotic. And too much chaos might not necessarily contribute to a growth economy. So that volatility alone is one reason why a lot of corporations who want some level of stability will choose to defend the Democratic Party over the Republican Party. It's bad. Too much volatility is bad for business. So that's the major reason why they go with the Democratic Party when they do. But even then, there's plenty of industries that still are firmly in the tank for the Republican Party. Oh. If all institutions also lose legitimacy, then the American project falls apart. If the American project falls apart, then we're like, going towards a capitalist dystopian future where you can't eke out the same level of profits that you normally would be able to get under stability and institutional legitimacy. What is this? Is it morally wrong for George W. Bush to stay on the 2024 sidelines? Analysts discuss. That's awesome. You see Kamala made a McDonald's TikTok?
I'm Kamala Harris, and today I'll be showing you my old job.
Wow.
Yeah, Mickey D.
Oh my God. She's pretty good. What the? It's a little bit too much Kardashian, but like low key, that's not a bad impression. What the?
We all love a Whopper.
Did you work at this location?
No, but it still signifies 1 in 3 Americans will work at McDonald's at least once in their life.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Why? She's so good. Okay, this part, close your eyes and you'll be like, that's Kamala Harris, not the laugh.
Did you work at this location?
No, but it still signifies 1 in 3 Americans will work at McDonald's at least once in their life. And it
Oh my God. Bro, what the? This is... Okay, she needs to be arrested for impersonating the presidential candidate. What the?
is America.
Okay.
Let's go get a Whopper or something.
Yeah.
What do you like? Extra onion?
I like some
Oh my
fries.
God, it smells like home. No, they didn't have these when I worked here. I don't know how this works. I don't like that at all. And under my rule, there'd be no more.
Yo, the body double is still a work in progress. Yo, she's so good. Holy shit.
And Kamala.
That was incredible, dude. That's insane. Another impression of Kamala.
Here I am with Kamala, by the way, who I agreed to debate because I love to debate, and I'm a very good debater. I love to debate.
That's debatable. Okay, very debatable.
What are my thoughts on immigration?
I think it's a perfectly fine question.
It's a very nasty
And we're going to be
question.
doing a lot because there are people over there.
Nah, after that last one, you're cooked. I can't see anything else. After her, it's over. Oh my God. Like, she's not even bad, but it just got cooked because like this girl is so
I'm
good.
Kamala Harris, and I love gay people. Let's just say Howard wasn't all straight and narrow, okay? I've had experiences myself. There's this one lady in college, and we got along so well. We would watch The L Word, and we listened to Tracy Chapman all the time, and then we stopped talking. But in that experience, I learned the importance of the woman's touch. And we do not need no man. Except Dirty Dog. No man. Except Dirty Dog.
Dude, what the Yo, what the It's so good. Oh my God. This one was worse than the last one. It is. This is like perfect. This one is actually perfect. Who is this? Sienna Hubertas? Where I want more Kamala. What the f*** is going on here? Her ad is Sienna Hubertas. She just got started on Kamala. Greg Kazar confirms he's running to lead the House Progressive Caucus at the rally next week with Bernie Sanders, who founded the caucus in 1991. My goat, dude. I love that. I love that. All I'm going to say is I did not get an interview with Pramila Jayapal, but I did with Greg. But, I mean, no disrespect to Pramila Jayapal. I just think Greg is really good, and I'm excited.
President Biden appearing on The View just about an hour ago. He was directly asked about the attempts on Donald Trump's life. Here's how President Biden responded.
He still jokes about Paul Pelosi nearly being beaten to death. He thinks that's funny. Let's see what else. He hinted that the Second Amendment people could do something against Hillary Clinton. And he's calling for a televised military tribunal for Liz Cheney. These are his past statements and ideas. He's blamed now, but now he's blaming rhetoric from you that you inspired these two assassination attempts. After all of the calls for violence, you know, take them out, and all the rest of it, you know what it is. Don't you think that that is just unbelievable? And what do you say to that?
Well, I think he is the most unusual president. No. Look, when I ran, I said I was running. One of the first major speeches I made was before Independence Hall about democracy. That democracy is at stake.
And to restore the soul of this country.
Yes, and look, Trump is
Careful.
there's not a lot of social redeeming value there.
No, you think right.
But here's the thing. He really does not believe in democracy and the guardrails that our system is set up for the abuse of power.
Charles, the news cycle today is about the assassination report in Iran threatening to assassinate Trump. And he goes on to say that Trump has no redeeming social value and doesn't believe in democracy.
President Biden has spent his entire time in the White House going off on 50% of this country. He hates MAGA Republicans. Let's be honest about this. The vitriol.
Bro, this fit is so unacceptable. It's the most unacceptable fit I've ever seen on Fox News, and that's saying something. It's so bad that I didn't even notice the ugly ass leather jacket that she's wearing on top of this green dress, which would have been fine on its own. Okay? God damn, dude. That is the most unacceptable thing. That is crazy, bro. Down to the socks and the shoes. Like, you tried to do something there and you literally failed spectacularly. You do not have that shit on, dude.
Every time he opened his mouth, MAGA Republicans are such an extreme threat. The vitriolic anger and hatred from this president to half of this nation has been on full display. Period. That is the bottom line. It's not even about President Trump. He hates anyone who ever voted for President Trump, and that's scary.
That was Mr. Unity, Emily.
Yeah, that's right. Mr. Unity, that continues after he said to put President Trump in the bullseye.
This is my favorite thing that they do when they switch positions and go from being like Joe Biden is sleepy and stupid and his brain is leaking out of his ear to like he's so scary. He's such a scary guy. Look at how scary his rhetoric is. That's my favorite when Republicans do that fake crying shit. It's awesome. I love it. I wish it was real. I wish Joe Biden was a scary guy.
You're absolutely
and said we're going to send every conservative to the mines, you know?
right, Charles. And this is someone whose rhetoric is frankly so below the office that he is privileged to hold. This is absolutely unacceptable. I will await his apology and accountability, for this rhetoric on the heels of
Good thing you're young.
I don't think anyone buys this. No matter how much they repeat this, like, I don't think this is going outside of like the immediate MAGA circles. Like, I cannot in good conscience, even if someone is like leaning towards voting for Trump, I don't ever foresee them going, yeah, it's really fucked up what Joe Biden is saying about Donald Trump. He's a really violent guy, and that's the reason why Trump was assassinated. Like, even people almost assassinated. I think even people that are leaning towards Trump probably like Trump for the silly things that Trump says that are inherently violent. You know what I mean? This is piercing normie space at all. Yeah, this is not even a little bit. Biden is violent and abusive. What are you talking about? Yeah, dude. Yeah, he's violent and abusive towards his meat that he's punishing. Just like I'm violent and abusive at the top of the hour. Okay? When there's a 3-minute ad break coming for you, it's both violent and abusive. And if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe. Okay? For $4.20 in the month of September, or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. I am now going to be calling Brendan James and Noah Colwyn the Blowback podcast boys. And if you want that wall-to-wall coverage, first we're going to talk about Israel, Palestine, Lebanon. We'll be getting into that, and then okay. I haven't even gotten into the Chapel Roan part yet. But yeah, let's do the Steve Kornacki breakdown of the 270 while I go pee.
We are just 6 weeks away from Election Day. And with all of that, the polls, well, they can be hard to tell where the race stands. But thankfully, we've got Steve Kornacki. He is at the big board to help break down all of it. All right, Steve, right now, what are the numbers telling us? It's great to see you.
You too, Steph. And, well, let's take a look because there have been a lot coming out there in the last couple days here. First of all, you've probably seen these headlines in the last couple of days. Our own NBC poll had Kamala Harris ahead by 5. CBS had her up 4. CNN just this afternoon, Harris by 1. Quinnipiac today, they're in a tie. So, and there have been many others. So let's show you the average here. This is the average of all the polls recently, all of them conducted post-debate. Where does that net out? It nets out on average to Harris by 3 points in the national horse race right now. Now, of course, what we've seen in 16 and in 20, the last 2 elections, is that Donald Trump fell short in the national popular vote both times. He won once and he nearly won a second time because of the Electoral College. So what do things look like in the 7 core battleground states? Looking at our poll averages in these states right now, and what jumps out, I think, is a bit of a north-south divide. Look at where you see the Harris blue here, where you see her best results. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, her 3 best results, those 3 sort of Big Ten states. You got Nevada, Harris leading in the average there by about 1.5 points. Nevada, a particularly volatile state with polling, too, a little bit hard to nail down, but that's what you have there. And then Trump's strength right now, Georgia, Arizona, and then you got a tie there in North Carolina, but Trump doing on the whole in the polling a little bit better in the Sun Belt than he is in those Midwest states. And of course, for Trump, probably the situation is he's got to get like Georgia, Carolina. He could then win with Pennsylvania. He could do something with. The point for Trump is he's going to have to win almost certainly one of those 3 Big Ten states right now where Harris is polling the best. But of course, these are very close margins.
Let's talk about this, because Politico is reporting that some Democrats justifiably are worried that the Teamsters' non-endorsement of Harris was this warning sign that she's got real work to do with working-class voters, despite the fact that so much of what Joe Biden has delivered, his legislative wins, have delivered for blue-collar workers.
So, Steph, we just showed you Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and take a look. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, these 3 states among the 7 core battleground states have the highest adult populations of white voters without 4-year degrees, blue-collar white voters. And, of course, we talk about this as a core Trump constituency in 16 and in 20, but another feature has been polling misses among this group of voters, blue-collar white voters, particularly in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, both in 2016 and in 2020. So keep that in mind. That last graphic I showed you, where Harris has her best poll average numbers in those 3 states, they're also the 3 states that are sort of chock full of that Trump-friendly demographic that has been underestimated, undercounted really in polling in terms of his extent of its support for Trump the last 2 times around. If that happens again, those small Harris poll average leads in those states look a lot different.
It's undercounted. Why? Because people are voting for him, but they don't like to talk about it because they don't want to deal with the headache?
Well, there's all sorts of theories about why pollsters have not been able to adequately capture the segment. It's a large segment, but the segment of the blue-collar white population that's pro-Trump. But one of the things that happens is you can get, demographically speaking, just in terms of being representative of the population as a whole, you could get the correct number of blue-collar white voters in your poll. But there are still blue-collar white voters who vote Democratic. There aren't as many who vote Republican in these states or vote Trump in these states. And what may end up happening in these polls is they get more willingness from the Democratic side of that, the Democratic segment there, to actually answer the phone and go through the poll process than on the Republican side. A lot of different theories for why those Trump voters have been hard to reach for pollsters, but it certainly seems that they have been. It certainly seems that that's been the issue in the polling in those states.
What about the ceiling? Because VP Harris still has areas where she can expand support, but Trump, it seems like he's got a ceiling. Is that the case?
Well, certainly, look, talking about 46% or so, 47% generally is what people think, just based on the last two elections, though there have been some polls where he's polled a little bit higher than that this time around. One area to look at for Trump is he's shown some growth in the polls relative to 2020 and 2016 among non-white voters. Now, among black voters, what you're looking at here, this is our average of all the different polls that are out there right now. And on average, Trump's sitting in the mid-teens there among black voters. Now, again, these numbers will bounce around from poll to poll, so it's a little bit hard to nail down. But we could say, historically speaking, if anything like this were to play out in the election, 15% for a Republican among black voters in a presidential election would be at the very high end of what we've seen in modern times. And that, it's small, but that could boost Trump in a state like Georgia, a state like North Carolina, a state with a large black population. Just that kind of improvement from the mid-high single digits to the mid-teens. And then among Hispanic voters, this was a very big story in 2020, of course. Trump made big strides with Hispanic voters. Well, again, you're looking at our average of all the polls right now among Hispanic voters. Harris 54, Trump 41. Again, if this were to be what actually played out in the election, that would represent further progress, further growth for Trump among Hispanic voters. You start thinking about in Arizona, Nevada, this would come into play, though, certainly in Georgia as well, 10% Hispanic there. So, again, this would represent growth for Trump. We talk about, is he locked in based on 16 and 20? Here are two demographic groups, particularly Hispanics, where he has shown some improvement from the last time around.
I don't know what the fuck to say.